Welcome to the Church Answers podcast. My name is Tom Rayner, and usually I have a much younger, much more handsome, much wiser, and smarter co-host with me named Jess Rayner. He's on vacation. He'll be back shortly. I mentioned in a previous podcast how much I miss having him here as a co-podcaster with me on Church Answers podcast. I mentioned how much I would love working alongside my sons, my three best friends, or my three sons. What a blessing. What an incredible opportunity God has given me. In this Church Answers podcast, we're talking about Thomas Edison. Okay, you know the name. You study a little bit about him in school. You know he's a famous inventor. I've mentioned in all the podcasts he had nearly 1,100 patents. Over 1,500, those are just U.S. patents, over 1,500 worldwide. When you look up at a light bulb with its filament, that's Thomas Edison. When you see the movies, those movies originated with Thomas Edison. When you talk on the telephone, you know, all of these things, I should say the record player, not the telephone. When you listen to any type of music, it had its origins in the record player, the phonograph, if you would, that was given to us by Thomas Edison. So many inventions. Founded many companies, included the famous General Electric, which at one time was the largest company in the world. What contributions this man made. Yeah, he had his flaws. He sometimes worked so hard he neglected his family. Yeah, some people have accused him of stealing ideas from others. I don't think so. I mean, he had people who came together and collaborated with ideas, and then he would synthesize and he would present the patent in his name. Really don't think he was stealing. He didn't need to. He was too smart for that. He just knew that many people could come up with good ideas, and so he encouraged that to take place. I mentioned a podcast that, I should say a book that I wrote many years ago called The Unchurched Next Door. And I used 16 to 20 researchers. Their photos are in the book. And it was that collaborative work and the ideas that set me down a different path than I had been going. I'd been going down the path that unchurched were resistant to the gospel. Their research showed quite the opposite. Only 5% were antagonistic to the gospel. It sent me on a different path. Thomas Edison did that all of his life. He lived to the ripe age of 84, which in the 1930s was a very, very old age, probably more like 105 today. So he is a man who had great accomplishments, was not without his flaws, and we've studied and we've talked about his inventions many, many years. But now we're finishing up talking about his leadership. Thomas Edison on leadership. In this particular episode, I'm going to be talking about selected persistence. And this particular episode begins with a thank you to our sponsor. You know, why do we have sponsors? So that we can offer you this ministry of podcasts, this information free. It's not something you have to pay for. It's something that is paid for by our sponsors. And so I don't hesitate to thank them for giving us the opportunity to get out messages such as this Thomas Edison on Leadership 4-part series. They pay the way so that you can have the privilege of listening, and I can have the privilege of sharing what we have studied and learned and then talk about on the podcast. Our primary sponsor for Church Answers podcast is Cheney and Associates. Let me just remind you, go and look up the Church Advisory podcast. You can get all kind of good information about finances, about leadership, about innovation. Steve Cheney is the epitome of leaders. So you lead your church, they'll handle the numbers. They have decades of experience. They have church accountants who'll speak your language. You can gain financial insights that you never thought about. They have tailored solutions for churches of every size and stage. They have all kind of tools that will help you. They'll do it for you. Your stewardship matters. Your time is precious. Let Cheney help you with that. All right, let's continue the series on Thomas Edison on leadership. And let's go right into part 4, the powerful lesson of selective persistence. I mentioned in a previous episode that if anything, Edison was persistent. What failure did, it led to the next thing. Failure did not mean there was a period. It was just simply a comma to the next thing. Thomas Edison was incredibly, almost immeasurably persistent. You ever known a persistent person? I have a grandson. Well, I have 11 grandchildren, but one of those grandchildren is one of the most persistent people I've ever known, grandson. If he does not convince you of something right away, he's going to keep arguing his case. Sometimes he gets in trouble for that, for just pushing it too far. He's preteen right now. I can see he has a future ahead of him. I don't know what it is, but he has a future ahead of him. But he is persistent. He's a great kid. He loves the Lord. He loves his parents. He loves me, his grandparent. He loves Nellie Joe, his other grandparent on our side of the family. Yep, but he is persistent. This kid does not give up. It's kind of like his dad. His dad is very similar to that. Just sticks with something and does not give up. Well, that was Thomas Edison. He was persistent. But the first point I want to make in this whole understanding of persistence is that he was purpose-driven persistent. He had purpose-driven energy. Now, you may think I'm talking about Rick Warren's book, The Purpose-Driven Church, or The Purpose-Driven Life. They certainly popularized the phrase purpose-driven. But when we talk about what Edison did, he made certain that things were persistently done, but they were done on the right projects. They were done with the resources that he wanted to allocate to them. He did not want persistence for persistence sake. He wanted persistence for the things that matter. This has immediate application and implication for local churches. I have heard so many times, our people just won't reach people for Jesus. Well, the first thing I say is, Pastor, you should be reaching several of them by yourself, regardless of what others do. And the second thing I say is, keep training people. Keep evangelism thoughts and ideas and initiatives and even programs before people. Don't just do one and done. The gospel is too important. Acts 1:8 said to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. That was Jesus' last will and testament. The Great Commission was important for him. It's important for us. And he did not just say be one and done and give up. How many missionary stories have we heard about missionaries who faithfully labored sharing the gospel, and they did not see fruit till later in life, or maybe even until the next generation? They were not able to see it. They were Moses-like, and they could not go into the promised land, but they set the stage for what would take place. Edison teaches us to be purpose-driven, persistent, to use our energy for those things that matter, and then don't let up. Just keep on keeping on. That does mean, as Eric Geiger and I wrote in Simple Church, you got to eliminate some, you've got to have some focus, but it also means that you persist on those things that really matter. You know, some of the best preachers I ever heard didn't start off as some of the best preachers I've ever heard. Let me just give you one example. He wouldn't mind. My co-host, Jess. Jess was never a bad communicator. I don't want to imply that. But he never thought he was going to be a pastor / much less a preacher. It just wasn't in his game plan. Well, quite frankly, it wasn't in mine or Sam's either. So we all have that in common. But he knew how important the preached word is. He knew the centrality of the pulpit for the church, and he persisted. He just kept on keeping on those things that really mattered. That's what Thomas Edison would say would be purpose-driven persistence. Keep on keeping on those things that matter. Did Thomas Edison quit doing some things? You bet he did. Certainly, he had almost 1,100 patents in the United States and over 1,500 worldwide, more than anybody else. Yeah, we can look up at a light bulb and remember that was Thomas Edison, or the phonograph that led to many of our audio listening, and his beginnings, incipient beginnings of movies and film. We can look at all of those things and say, those were things that mattered to Edison. And so he stayed purpose-driven, persistent with him. Secondly, not only purpose-driven persistence, but selective persistence means pivoting is success. Let me say that again. Pivoting is success. Pivoting means you're going in one direction and you take a turn, maybe a sharp turn, in another direction. I don't know if it'd be a 180, like when a military personnel plants his or her foot and turns around when someone says about face, but maybe it's a 60-degree or 90-degree pivot or whatever the metaphor needs to be. But Thomas Edison taught us that not only is pivoting okay, that means trying a different way that we've been doing something, but pivoting is necessary. I loved his Menlo Park lab where he brought several people together just to do research. This was after he was wildly successful in the business world and hadn't been able to get enough funds to do that. He started off on his own, like most of us do. But he was able to bring these groups of people together. And at the end of the day, he would find out, okay, let's find out what you've discovered. And they would all be doing different experiments, trying different things. And he would go from one to one and he'd say, let's change this just a little bit. Let's do this direction. You're going in a good direction, but we need a slight modification. That's a pivot. And in our churches, we can do that as well. We can do a pivot. It doesn't mean we have to stop doing something, but it may be an iteration that is more focused than what we were doing. Pivoting is definitely success because it means that not only are you going in a good direction, but you've understood that you can go in a slightly better direction just by pivoting. You know, the word pivot, this is quite a segue. It just feels like running to me. And Upward Sports has upward running. In fact, it's their newest. Pickleball was their newest. I love saying pickleball, but running is their newest sport. And one of the reasons it's so cool is Upward does all the work for you. It's simple to start. You just need one passionate leader. You build strong connections in the community. You organize a 5K. You bring the community together. Upward does all the planning for you. They give you a complete system to do a 5K for your community. Any church can do this. Any church. I wish you would take time to go talk to my friends at Upward. Go to upward.org/runcoach/ go and talk to them about this opportunity to reach your community through running or through having a 5K. Any church can do it. And it's a great way to reach your community. And maybe you have some kind of outreach going. And like Thomas Edison, you just need a little bit of a pivot, just a slight change, and you're able to go in a different direction that is even better. So pivoting is successful. Another thing that Edison brings to us when we think about his powerful lessons of selected persistence, it meant that he was aware that there were limited resources and they had to be allocated appropriately. His selected persistence means, okay, I have this many people. I have this many hours in a day. I have this many ideas. And even though he loves to see multiple things going on at a time, he understood he had an awareness of resources. And even though he worked tirelessly, oftentimes just getting an hour or two sleep while he slept on a sofa or on the floor next to his desk, he understood that there was limited resources and he wanted those resources as the company persisted, as the inventors persisted. He had a team of inventors. As they looked for new ideas, he had resource awareness. And that's what we got to do. God has given us all the same amount of time. It's called 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, 365 to 66 days out of the year. We have those resources. We have the resources of money. We have the resources of people's time. We have resources. That is not a limiting factor. That's an awareness factor. And Edison understood that. He wanted to persist in those areas that made a difference because he knew resources were not unlimited. He had resource awareness that caused him to make certain that persistence was selectively going down the right path. Many times when I thought of Edison in the past, before I began to learn more about his leadership principles, I would learn that, hey, he didn't just do things chaotically. He was smart. He had a great idea that there were limitations. He did not want the limitations to be limits in the sense that we can't do something. He wanted limitations to be an awareness of what we should be doing, not what we cannot do. He always tended to focus on the positive instead of the negative. This is where we can go instead of this is what we cannot do. And so he had that resource awareness, and that resource awareness led him to some of his greatest inventions. Well, we're talking about the powerful lesson of selected persistence. This is our fourth lesson on Thomas Edison. We've had three others on the Church Answers podcast. I invite you to go back and listen to them on your podcasting app if you have not already, or watch them on YouTube. It's the last one was the incredible lesson of managed chaos. The second one was last week, how failures succeed. And our entree, our first one was understanding the mind of a growth leader. And we're finishing up part 4 today with the powerful lesson of selected persistence. And we'll end with this. Edison had contextual awareness. He not only had resource awareness, he has contextual awareness. What does that mean? He knew the times in which he lived. He knew the organizations that he had to deal with. He knew how to deal with limitations. He knew how to deal with abundance. He knew the marketplace very well. And many times he had to introduce the marketplace to things they didn't even know they needed. Steve Jobs would say that many times in the future. I need to tell the customer what he needs and wants. But he knew that market. He knew it well. It was not just a matter of creating a resource out of chaos. It was a matter of, out of nothing, not chaos. It was a matter of creating a resource of understanding where you were at that time. And one of the ways that this has such direct application is the whole idea of understanding our community. We have a report that is our most popular report called Know Your Community, nearly 40 pages that give you all kind of details about your community. It's not about statistics as such. It's not about a bunch of numbers as such. It's about the people and who they are in your community. It is knowing your community so you can reach your community. And it's for that reason that we begin to see many people are understanding their community like Edison understood the context in which he lived. He wasn't just I don't know if I want to use the word vacuum because that was so prevalent in the light bulb creation, but he wasn't operating out of a vacuum. He knew the times in which he existed. He studied the marketplace. He studied competitors. He studied opportunities. He studied where others had run into roadblocks. He understood his context. And he persisted, but in that way, it was selected persistence. Okay, let's summarize these before we wrap this up. The powerful lesson of selected persistence. He was purpose-driven in how he used his resources. Secondly, he saw any kind of pivot as success because it meant you were going a certain direction and you just had to make a slight turn. Third, he had resource awareness. He didn't see it as resource limitation, but he had awareness of the resources that he had and allocated accordingly. Fourth, he understood the context in which he lived, which was the business context, the creativity context, the political context, the financial context. He understood all of these factors, and it integrated into what he did and why he not only developed so many great ideas, and as I've said probably 20 times, almost 1,100 patents, it also affected how he grew businesses and how he affected lives as well. I would love to expand and explore about Thomas Edison. In many ways, these 4 episodes have been very, very brief, but I've enjoyed putting them together because I've learned a lot that I did not know about the man, even though I thought I knew the man. I hope these 4 lessons or these 4 episodes on Thomas Edison have been helpful to you, maybe helpful to your leadership, maybe helpful to your leadership at your church. I do invite you to give us a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, small but growing audience. More of you are on our podcasting app like Spotify or Apple, of course, iTunes. But wherever you listen to us or watch us, give us some type of way that the world can know that you like it so we can send people to our podcast to offer this free ministry to them. And we offer it free by having such incredible sponsors as Cheney and Associates. the accounting firm for the church. Once again, go check them out, ChaneyAssociates.com/church answers, or go to their podcast, Church Advisory Podcast. It has been my joy to present these 4 episodes on Thomas Edison on leadership. Different facets, different ideas, different thoughts. Some helpful. I hope most were helpful. Jess Rayner will be back with us in a while, and we'll continue the father-son interaction that takes place. But I thank you for your patience listening to this old man talk about an even older man, now gone, Thomas Edison, and his major contributions he's made. Thank you, as always, for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Thank you for being a part of the Church Answers community. You are why we do what we do, for the glory of God. See ya in the next Church Answers podcast.